The signal from beyond the research outpost on Kepler 186f wasn't supposed to make history. Nestled in the shadow of rust-colored mountains on humanity's first extrasolar colony, Outpost Horizon was designed for quiet scientific work, monitoring atmospheric terraforming progress and studying the planet's strange microbial life. The 23 researchers stationed there had made peace with isolation, their only connection to Earth being the monthly supply drone and data packet exchange. Dr. Elena Reyes adjusted the deep space receiver array for the third time that day. Something was interfering with their normal communications band, a persistent signal that didn't match any known transmission pattern. "Still getting that weird feedback?" Marcus Chen asked, sliding a cup of synthetic coffee across her workstation. Elena nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the oscillating pattern. "It's not random noise. There's structure to it, mathematical precision. Look at the repetition in the wavelength groupings." "You think it's artificial?" Marcus leaned closer, his breath fogging slightly in the station's perpetually cool air. "I think," Elena said slowly, "that we need to run this through the SETI protocols." Within hours, the entire outpost was awake, crowded around the communications hub as Elena and the station's AI worked to decode the signal. What they initially thought might take weeks occurred in just 46 hours. The signal contained a mathematical primer, followed by simple pictographs, and finally, unmistakable distress markers. "It's a call for help," Station Commander Amara Wilson announced to her assembled crew. Her weathered face showed the strain of 2 sleepless nights. "And according to the directional data, it's coming from the HD 8552 system approximately 36 light-years from here." "That means whoever sent this," began Li Wang, the station's xenobiologist. "Sent it 36 years ago minimum," Elena finished. "Plus however long it took to reach us from Kepler. They could all be dead by now." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had ventured beyond their solar system only 30 years prior. They had yet to encounter any other intelligent species despite decades of searching. And now their first contact might be with the ghosts of a dead civilization. "We're forwarding everything to Earth," Commander Wilson decided. "This is way beyond our authority." The data packet, including the decoded signal, reached Earth 3 weeks later. The response was immediate and unexpected. Rather than the cautious, measured approach typical of the United Earth Council, Admiral Jana Novak of the newly formed Interstellar Defense Force was dispatched directly to Kepler 186f, along with a science team specialized in xenolinguistics. "The signal contains more than just distress markers," Admiral Novak explained during her first briefing at Outpost Horizon. Her tall frame commanded the room, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. "It includes detailed information about an aggressive species called the Dromath Collective and their systematic conquest of the Volari home system." "The Volari being the ones who sent the signal?" Elena asked. "Correct, Dr. Reyes, and based on the trajectory information embedded in their transmission, the Dromath operate from at least 7 star systems in a loose sphere around HD 8552. Marcus looked skeptical. "With respect, Admiral, why would Earth care about an alien conflict happening decades ago and light-years away?" The Admiral's expression hardened. "Because 3 months ago we received a second signal, this one directed specifically toward our solar system. The Dromath have noticed our expansion and have adjusted their conquest trajectory. Earth believes they will reach our nearest outpost within 50 years. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. "We're going to help the Volari," Admiral Novak continued once the noise settled. "Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we need allies against what's coming." The next 6 months transformed Kepler 186f from a quiet research outpost to a bustling military staging ground. Earth had been quietly building its defensive capabilities since the first colony ships left the solar system, developing technologies that bent the rules of physics in ways that would have seemed impossible a generation earlier. Gravitic engines that could accelerate ships to near light speeds without relativistic effects. Weapons that operated on principles beyond conventional physics. Communication systems that somehow allowed for faster-than-light information transfer. Dr. Elena Reyes found herself reassigned to the flagship of the Expeditionary Force, the UES Defiant. Her expertise in decoding the original signal made her essential to the mission's communication team. "How many ships are we sending?" she asked Admiral Novak as they stood in the observation dome, watching vessels materialize in orbit above Kepler 186f. 72 combat-ready vessels and 18 support ships, the Admiral replied. "The largest fleet humanity has ever assembled." "Will it be enough?" The Admiral's gaze remained fixed on the assembling Armada. "The Dromoth have never encountered humans before. That's our advantage." 3 days later, the fleet departed for HD 8552, using a combination of conventional faster-than-light travel and a new technology called fold space that the military had kept classified until now. Elena and other civilian specialists watched in awe as stars blurred and space itself seemed to bend around them. "We'll reach the Valari system in approximately 2 weeks," Navigation Officer Tariq Ibrahim announced to the bridge crew. Assuming the fold space calculations hold. But it was on day 9 of their journey that everything changed. The entire fleet dropped suddenly out of fold space, alarms blaring throughout each vessel. "Proximity warning," reported Tactical Officer Ju. "Something massive directly ahead." On the Defiant's main view screen, a structure appeared. A colossal ring of dark metal spanning hundreds of kilometers, surrounded by smaller artificial constructs. "That's not on any of our charts," Admiral Novak said, rising from her command chair. "It's not Valari design either," Elena added, comparing the structure to the architectural examples from the original signal. "The geometry is all wrong." Before anyone could speculate further, the ring pulsed with energy, and a projection filled the bridge, a being with multiple limbs and an exoskeleton that seemed partially mechanical. Unidentified vessels, the being spoke in oddly accented but perfect English. "You have entered Dromoth space. Identify yourselves and your purpose immediately." The bridge crew froze, stunned that the Dromoth had somehow learned human language. "Admiral," Novak stepped forward. "I am Admiral Jana Novak of the United Earth Defense Force. We are responding to a distress call from the Valari people." The Dromoth representative's mechanical appendages clicked rapidly. "The Valari resistance has been neutralized. Their world is now under Dromoth management. Your intervention is unnecessary and unwelcome. Return to your territory." "We've traveled too far to turn back without confirming the status of the Valari ourselves," Novak replied firmly. The Dromoth's posture shifted subtly. "The primitive species that sent the distress signal you received no longer exists in any meaningful capacity. They have been integrated into the collective. This exchange is concluded." The projection vanished, and the massive ring began to pulse, with energy once more. "They're powering weapons," Tactical Officer Ju shouted. "All ships, defensive formations," Admiral Novak ordered calmly. "This is not a first contact situation anymore. This is a rescue mission. The Valari are still alive, and the Dromoth are lying." As the fleet scrambled into position, Elena stared at the ring structure, a terrible realization dawning. "Admiral, I don't think that's a weapon. Look at the energy signature. It's creating a fold space corridor. They're trying to send us somewhere." Before the Admiral could respond, space itself seemed to twist around the human fleet. The stars blurred once more, but not by their own doing. When reality stabilized, they found themselves in orbit around a dying world. Atmosphere thick with pollution, land masses scarred by massive mining operations. But scattered among them, devastation were signs of a once beautiful civilization. Crumbling spires of crystal-like material, massive gardens now withered, and orbital structures in various states of decay. "The Valari homeworld," Elena whispered. And floating among the debris of what had once been orbital defenses were the unmistakable ships of the Dromoth Collective, a fleet 3 times the size of Earth's expeditionary force, waiting in perfect ambush formation. "They knew we were coming," Navigator Ibrahim said in disbelief. "But how?" Admiral Novak's expression turned grim. "They've been watching us longer than we realized. This isn't just about the Valari anymore. This is about humanity's future." She turned to communications. "All ships, battle stations, We fight not just for ourselves today, but for every species that has ever faced extinction at the hands of conquerors. As warning klaxons sounded throughout the fleet, Elena Reyes detected something else. A faint transmission coming from the planet below, using the same mathematical patterns as the original distress call. The Volari were still alive, and they were still fighting. Humanity unleashed. The first volley from the Dromoth ships should have annihilated the human fleet. Their weapons, pulse cannons that fired superheated plasma wrapped in gravitational fields, had eradicated the defensive capabilities of 17 other spacefaring species. Yet when the blinding light of their attack faded, the Earth vessels remained, surrounded by strange, shimmering fields that had somehow absorbed or deflected the assault. On the bridge of the Dromoth command vessel, Supreme Tactician, Vorkath clicked his mandibles in confusion. Impossible, their shields should have collapsed instantly. Not shields, his weapons officer corrected, analyzing the readings. Some kind of phase dispersal field. They're using the energy of our own weapons against us. Aboard the UES Defiant, Admiral Novak stood calmly as tactical displays showed minimal damage across the fleet. "Return fire," she ordered. "Targeted strikes only. I want their weapons and propulsion systems disabled where possible." Elena Reyes worked frantically at her console, trying to isolate the faint Volari transmission from the planet below. "Admiral, I'm detecting life signs on the surface, concentrated in underground structures. The signal pattern matches what we decoded from the original distress call. Some Volari have survived." "Then we have more reason to win this fight," Novak replied. "Send the data to tactical. We need to avoid hitting those areas." The human counterattack bewildered the Dromoth. Instead of conventional energy weapons, the Earth ships deployed what appeared to be small autonomous drones that attached themselves to Dromoth vessels before detonating with surgical precision, disabling weapons arrays and engines without breaching life support systems. "They're not trying to destroy us," Vorkath realized with mounting unease. "They're trying to cripple us." His observation was interrupted by reports of even stranger phenomena. Some human ships seemed to phase in and out of normal space, becoming briefly intangible when targeted. Others projected holographic duplicates, confusing Dromoth targeting systems. One particularly troubling human vessel appeared to absorb energy weapons fire completely, then redirect it as a concentrated beam. "How is this possible?" demanded Vorkath. Their technological level was assessed at barely interstellar. These capabilities exceed even sixth-tier civilizations. The battle shifted dramatically when smaller Earth vessels broke through the Dromoth line and entered the planet's atmosphere, heading directly for the largest concentration of surviving Volari. "They're attempting a ground rescue," Vorkath snarled. "All planetary defense systems target those ships, but the surface-to-space weapons that had kept the Volari subjugated for decades suddenly went offline, their control systems compromised by invisible infiltration protocols that Earth had deployed during the initial exchange." "Sir," reported a panicked Dromoth officer, "something is accessing our networks. Our barriers are failing." Vorkath watched in growing horror as system after system went dark, compromised by attack algorithms unlike anything the collective had encountered before. Not brute force, but elegant adaptive code that seemed to anticipate their countermeasures before they were implemented. On the surface, Earth's dropships landed near the remains of what had once been the Volari capital. Marine Commander Samira, Khalid led the first team out, weapons ready but not firing indiscriminately. "Movement ahead," warned Corporal Jackson, his visor display highlighting heat signatures approaching through the ruins. The aliens that emerged were tall, slender beings, with bioluminescent patterns flowing across their skin-like surface. They moved cautiously, clearly weak from prolonged suffering but with unmistakable hope in their large compound eyes. One stepped forward, raising 4 of its 6 limbs in what seemed to be a gesture of peace. "You came," it said in a resonant voice that seemed to bypass sound entirely, communicating directly through vibrations. "After so long, someone finally came." Commander Khalid lowered her weapon. We received your signal. Earth stands with the Valari against the Dromoth Collective. More. Valari emerged from hidden tunnels and shelters, their numbers far greater than the human rescuers had expected. Not just dozens or hundreds, but thousands of survivors who had maintained a secret resistance for generations. The Dromoth believe us broken, explained the Valari leader, who identified himself as Sentinel Learthal. They keep us alive only to extract our biological compounds which they use in their neural interfaces. But we have been waiting, preserving our knowledge, preparing for a chance to reclaim our world. As Earth Marines established a secure perimeter, Learthal explained how the Valari had developed methods to shield their thoughts from Dromoth scanning technology, creating the illusion of docile slaves while maintaining their cultural identity, in secret. In orbit, the tide had turned decisively. Half the Dromoth fleet now drifted powerless, their systems compromised, their crews contained but unharmed. The remaining ships were retreating, reorganizing for a potential counterattack. Admiral Novak opened a direct channel to Vorkath's vessel. "This conflict can end now," she stated. "Withdraw from Valari space completely, provide reparations for the damage you've caused, and release any other species you've subjugated. These are our terms." Vorkath's response was immediate and defiant. "The Dromoth Collective does not negotiate with lesser beings. This setback is temporary. We have conquered 17 civilizations. Yours will be the 18th. "You misunderstand," Novak replied calmly. "This wasn't our full military force. This was an expeditionary rescue mission with limited objectives. You haven't seen what humanity is truly capable of." As if to emphasize her point, new readings appeared on Dromoth sensors, massive gravitational distortions forming at the edge of the system. The fold space corridor that had brought the human fleet was reopening, but on a vastly larger scale. "What is this?" Vorkath demanded. Instead of answering, Admiral Novak cut the communication. She turned to her bridge crew. "Status of the evacuation? First wave of Valari civilians is being loaded onto our support vessels," reported Operations Officer Yamamoto. "Commander Khalid reports they'll need at least 12 hours to evacuate all the survivors they've found." "They'll have it," Novak assured him. "The second fleet will be here within 30 minutes. Elena Reyes looked up from her station. "Second fleet? I thought this was Earth's entire expeditionary force." The Admiral's expression remained neutral, but something like grim satisfaction flickered in her eyes. "Dr. Reyes, did you really think humanity would develop interstellar travel and not prepare for the possibility that the universe might not be friendly?" The gravitational distortions collapsed into multiple fold space apertures, and through them came not dozens but hundreds of Earth vessels, massive carriers, dreadnoughts, and specialized craft of configurations even the Defiant's crew had never seen before. On the Dromoth command ship, Vorkath finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. The collective had assessed humans as a curiosity, technically capable but inexperienced, expanding beyond their system without understanding the dangers that awaited them. That assessment had been catastrophically wrong. "All vessels, full retreat," he ordered. "Return to collective space immediately. Priority alert to all Dromoth worlds. Humanity is not a Tier 8 civilization as previously classified. Reclassify as Tier 1, extreme caution advised." As the remaining Dromoth ships fled, Admiral Novak received a direct communication from Earth Command. She listened silently, then turned to her officers. "Our mission parameters have been expanded," she announced. "We are now authorized to establish a permanent defensive presence in this system and to assist the Valari in rebuilding their civilization. Additionally, we are to begin immediate diplomatic outreach to any other species that have suffered at the hands of the Dromoth Collective." 3 months later, Elena Reyes stood with Sentinel Learthal on the observation deck of the newly established Joint Earth-Valari station, orbiting their recovering homeworld. Below them, terraforming technology originally designed for Kepler 186f was being adapted to heal the ecological damage inflicted by decades of Dromoth exploitation. "Your people have accomplished in weeks what we thought would take generations," Learthal observed, the patterns on his skin glowing with what Elena had learned to recognize as profound emotion. Earth has had its own history of conflict, Elena replied. We learned long ago that rebuilding is just as important as fighting. The Dromoth believed themselves invincible because they had never encountered true resistance, Learthal said. They didn't understand that some species appear peaceful not because they cannot fight, but because they choose not to until absolutely necessary. Elena nodded. There's an old Earth saying that seems appropriate. Beware the fury of a patient people. As they spoke, reports arrived from across what had once been Dromoth territory. 3 other subjugated species had risen up against their oppressors, inspired by the news of the Valari liberation. Earth vessels were already en route to provide support. The galaxy was changing, old hierarchies crumbling as word spread of how humans had responded to a decades-old distress call from a species they had never met. Not with hesitation or calculation, but with an overwhelming force driven by a simple principle that many older civilizations had forgotten. When the innocent are threatened, you answer the call. Not because of profit or power, but because it's the right thing to do. And that perhaps was the most surprising weapon humanity had brought to the stars. Not their technology or tactics, but their unwavering conviction that every sentient being deserved the chance to determine their own destiny. The Dromoth had sent a message intended to frighten humanity back to their home system. Instead, humans had come in full force, and the galaxy would never be the same.